Hello guys, David Vose here. What a beautiful day. I think it's going to start warming up. Um, Looking at 50s. Temperatures are up in the 50s. And all the snow is going to get melted and maybe the road will get dried out. Oh, friends. Friends, I ask you to listen to what I have to say today. I don't know what I'm going to say, but I do have some thoughts in my mind. Some very perplexing, comforting to me. Amazing things to tell you. Things you probably have seen for yourself in many ways. But sometimes if you guys are out there going to work every day and trying to do this rat race, you may not have had a chance to think about what's going on. Oh, friends. I've heard in the last week several announcements by the government or someone in the government telling us that it's going to be all over any minute. It's imminent, and warning us to take shelter. I've heard it about they're making these announcements about these solar flares. They've been warning us about that for a while. I don't believe there are any solar flares coming that's gonna... I mean, I'd never heard about solar flares in my life until recently, last few years. And now they're like, oh, they're coming. We haven't had one in millions of years. Now we're going to get one. So then they changed their story the other day, I noticed, and they said, well, it's because we don't have any ozone. So we can't block them out like we used to. And I think that's a likely story as well. Because I know beyond a doubt that they're planning it. So what they're going to do is flip a switch, and they're going to say that it was a solar flare or something. But on the other hand, I mean, we don't really know what's going on. You know how Bill Gates has been putting all the litter in the air, all the glitter in the litter? I call it litter. And now they're studying whether or not that's going to be healthy for us. Duh. But the reason that supposedly that they're doing is they say this is global warming. And they need to cool it down. Well, could it be that these solar flares have always been, but we've never had this technology, this internet, and these radio signals and these satellites, and that it's detrimental to the satellites and to their structure. And maybe they're putting those little glittery things, little pieces of metal, whatever they are, whatever it is, maybe they're doing it to protect us somehow from this radiation, and they're hoping that it won't knock out the whole system. But just think of how insane that is, if that's true. So they know then that their technology cannot stand, can't have it. It'll just go like that when a solar flare comes along. So in order to keep their technology and their control over us, they're willing to destroy the world by putting all this little glitter up there, which blocks out the sun so that we can't grow food and we're all going to die. Now, maybe that's why they're going to make meat in a test tube, and maybe they're going to make tomatoes in a test tube, and they won't even need the sun. Why? Because maybe they're planning on putting us all inside of a little biotechnology, right? Into a computer chip. We could live on the moon or on the Mars or whatever, a little computer box. We wouldn't have to even have a real world. So they're either putting that up there to kill us, or they're putting up that stuff in the air knowing it will kill us, but they don't care because they're trying to kill us some other way, and they don't want to kill us some other way before they kill us some other way. Well, that's really what that would amount to. But I think I'll choose what's behind door number 3, And I'll go with Bill Gates is an evil fiend and he's trying to kill us all, period. All I know is everything they tell us is a lie, and global warming is a lie. Because, well, I don't want to get it any cooler. And it's been this way my whole life, so I kind of like it this way. And my daddy told me it was about this way when he was a kid. And his grandpa said about the same thing. So I haven't seen much of a change. I know that pesky thing called winter comes every year. Sometimes it gets hot in the summer. And it's done that for a long, long time. But, friends, I doubt whether it's just at this exact moment in time, the ozone layer's gone down, and now we're going to get hit with some EMP or something. And fortunate for them, the whole grid's going to go down. And I don't know if any of you have thought about what would happen if that happens. But as soon as that goes down, I mean, I heard Jordan Peterson talking about it. I heard Joe Rogan, all of them. They're saying it's going to happen any day. Or not if, but when. Now, these guys are being paid to tell us this. You have to understand that. There is no disclosure other than what they want to disclose to us. And it's not the truth. They're saying aliens are being sighted and they're coming and they're really aliens and they're from other planets and they're ruling over us and they've got ships and, well, this has been going on for a while with the whole Roswell hoax. Friends, there are no weird-looking potato head men that are green and have big round eyes. That is a hoax. Okay, there are no reptilians. People who talk like that are paid by the British government. They're double agents. Sitchin, Von Daniken, Belenkowski, even David Icke has been they put these individuals out there. Alex Jones, Joe Rogan, George Norrie, all of them. They're all out there. Jordan Peterson, Tucker Carlson, pouring his heart out, telling us all the truth. These terrible people and what they've done to us. How dare they kill us all? But now they come out and tell us after they've already done the deed. And there's no way to turn this clock back. Close that window a little bit. Maybe that rooster won't make so much noise. They want you to believe, and I don't really care what you believe, but they want to stir up certain people against other people, and they want a clash. We're going to have the clash of the Titans. Think about this. Do you realize that there are lots of different opinions in the world? I mean, there's certain groups, and they're about equal, each of these groups. You've got Muslims and Christians. You've got Democrats and Republicans. You've got communists, and we've got capitalists, and we've got socialists, and we got all these groups, you know. Churches like Lutherans and Baptists, and then other churches like Mormons and Adventists, and they're all being pitted against each other. Well, you don't keep the Sabbath. Well, yeah, but you don't call his name the right, and you don't spell it right, and yeah, you don't keep the right holy days, and yeah, you're a pagan, and yeah, you're, you know, a blasphemer, and you don't have the Holy Spirit, and you don't speak in tongues, or now, did you see that hoax with Tucker Carlson interviewing Putin? Tried to make it look like, if you guys aren't smart and you're not aware, you'll see this, and you'll think, oh boy, it's really fair, and he was hard-hitting with that Putin, and Putin was really good. He handled it well. It was designed that way. I've said over and over again, look into it. Tucker Carlson's father was high up in the CIA. His job was MK Ultra mind control, and he was over public propaganda, and they started PBS and other programs to manipulate humans and to regulate advertising and to do this. Remember, the people who run the government, the CIA, are the businessmen of Project Paperclip. They had all the money because they won the war, these Bavarians. They're the bankers, too. So understand this disclosure happened right at the same time that Tucker Carlson gets supposedly fired and then goes out there and he's bucking them, and he's doing what he wants and they're going to sue him and he's the good guy. It's just like Trump. They're trying to put him in jail and sue him and everything, but he's the good guy and he's fighting for us. It's all a big staged event. So they want you to prefer Putin, the communist, over Biden, the capitalist, because the capitalist is corrupt. He's a pedophile. Oh, but Putin's not. Putin's got more money than Elon. And of course, Elon is playing to the conservative side. But all this is staged. They interviewed Putin. They're both in on it. Putin's in on it with whoever is running this country. And right now, they're wanting you to like Putin. Notice that Trump has always been like, well, I like Putin's a good guy. It's better than Biden. Most Americans would rather have Putin as president of the United States than Biden. What you're saying is you'd rather have communism in this country over capitalism. What does that tell you? Capitalism is definitely evil, but who was it started by? The same Bavarian Illuminati. All of them are, what do we want? Putin now? We don't want Putin. We don't want none of them. And Trump and Elon are billionaires. They're staging it. They had a reality television show. They're staging that, the late night shows don't like Trump. And it was all staged. Now he's going on their shows again. And they're like, hey, everybody loves him now. Because they are getting the entire world, and the opinion of the entire world is going to be pretty soon to hate the harlot. What is the harlot? Because the 10 horns shall eat up her fleshly parts and burn her with fire. Well, I'll guarantee that in Revelation that they destroy the harlot is right at the point where it's the showcase, it's the big grand unveiling. The whole book of Revelation is about this 1,260 days and the rise of the beast and the Antichrist. And what is this 1,260 days? Jesus tells you, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then let those in Jerusalem flee into the mountains. And those in the fields not go back into the house to get their garments, but get out. Because these are days for meting out justice. What are these days? 1,260 days. The Great Tribulation. When you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, that's the Great Tribulation. There is no other. That's the one Jesus spoke of. And they're going to burn her with fire. Hosea calls Jerusalem a harlot. The church is the pure and white virgin. The harlot is the old Jerusalem. Why do you think they put Biden in, Mr. Magoo? He may be senile, but he was probably senile when he started. Why did they put him in there? They want you to know that, or believe, that the reason things are going down the tubes is because they got some senile guy in there, and you're the one that elected him. You're the idiot. And yeah, the Democrats are liars. Didn't you know that, you stupid? Why did you vote for them? Well, your fault. Oh yeah, these people that want to take your children's, biology away? Well, you should have known better. Why did you do this? Do you realize that when you go on your instrument, this phone, when you go on, do you know, I know some of you kind of know it, but I don't think you understand. It is tailored to you. This contraption was designed somewhere in a laboratory, this phone, to destroy you. That's what it was designed for and nothing else. Not to communicate, but to take your mind, heart, and soul. Do you know that it's tailor-made? Each and every one of you get your own feed. Now, there are, I don't know how many different categories that they use, that they funnel to you. For me, they funnel all the stuff about the world's ending and da-da-da-da, because they think I'm interested in that. Well, what they do is they take your proclivity, what they think you like, they'll show you a bunch of stuff. And if you like that stuff, they'll show you more. But then once they know who and what type you are, then they lure you into the club with all the others of that type. The haters, or the abusers, or the addicted, or the angry, or the happy. Maybe you're a little too happy. So you get to go over here where you do nothing. You're a pacifist. Or you're in the camp where nothing can be done. Who cares? It's just destined. And there's nothing, and you don't want to think about it. But you have a category, and they know who you are, and they send you information. And so what they've done is they've lured you and created you in your mind and what you're thinking and your ego and your beliefs. They've been creating certain groups. Now it's going to come to a crescendo. And all the people who don't like the transgenders are going to be out in the street saying we've had enough. And all the transgenders are going to be out in the street saying, well, we've had enough of your religion and trying to tell us what to do and how to have our sex. And meanwhile, you've got Muslims coming over, pouring over. Have you wondered why in the last few years, all of these terrorists and communists and socialists and people that really have been put down and abused and raped and pillaged for years, they've been torturing them in Venezuela, in Guatemala, and Honduras, but they're just trying to depopulate and clear out all the people around the Virgin Islands, Hawaii, and Panama, Guatemala, because they've got a underground city there. They don't want all of us around them. They want to separate everybody from them. They're all going to be on their island or underground in their city when this all goes down. And we're going to be in Texas, right? And Southern California and Arizona and Phoenix and the East Coast and New York and Florida. And there's going to be wars and civil wars and everybody's going to kill each other. But they're going to have a little safe haven over there and maybe in Washington, Northern California, Hawaii. That's why they're burning out people and buying up all that land. Because the Silicon Valley's for the rich. And where they're going to live, they're going to have it all barricaded so you can't go in there. And they're also going to have shelters underground and caves. They're trying to protect themselves. And they're bringing in all these terrorists so they can fight this civil war against us. Mexico is under it's not under martial law, it's under chaos. We're told that the drug cartel runs the country. The drug cartel are children. They're 18, 20-year-old thugs with tattoos all over their body, come out of prison. That's why they got these prisons. And most of them are gay. And they created this. I remember back when I was young and we were all talking about neo-Nazis. And up in Coeur d'Alene, there was this Richard Butler and all this Aryan nations and stuff. And they were going in and recruiting from the prisons. Well, and we could go into 1,000 different things like that that they've been doing. But what they do is they offer them, look, it's a tough life. They've made it very tough for many people. People are on the streets. People are on drugs. They lure them in on drugs. People want drugs so bad they'll do anything. And they recruit them. And it's kind of like It's kind of like Satanism. Once you get in there and you make the mistake of selling your soul, you don't get to go free. You get what you got. You got some sex with a young person, or which for some crazy reason they convinced you that's what you needed. Or you got to have a lot of money or power, position of authority, but you had to sell your soul. You had to take a picture doing some dirty deed. You had to be blackmailed. And once you get into that position, it's very difficult to come out, because you have to expose yourself, probably give your life to say, look, I was wrong. I want to tell the world and expose this, and they'll probably kill you. So all of us, most of the people that I know and talked to and heard, will rant and rave, and they're disgusted about all these pedophiles and all these bad people that sold their soul to the devil just for a little money. And we would never do that. And yet every one of you, most of the people, and hopefully not any of my subscribers, but many people in this world, most of the people in the United States, China and Russia and everywhere in the world, we've all sold our soul for a luxurious couch and a water massaging hot tub and a fancy car. Money and sex and power, prestige. I know you claimed to everybody you were a patriot. You was in the war and the military, but it was just a job. You're not a patriot. You murdered people. You believed that that was patriotism, murdering poor peasants in Vietnam? How are you any better than Bill Gates? Maybe he believes in what he's doing. He's trying to protect Mother Nature, so he's got to kill us all. Well, you were killing people for what? A less of a reason than that. Put napalm on them? Well, I didn't know what was going on, Dave. I was just a grunt. Well, Jesus said, turn the other cheek. You weren't a Christian. And if you didn't know, I understand, the Lord understands, you were persuaded, you were mesmerized. The Apostle Paul was a murderer, but now we must repent. And all of you out there, nurses, jabbing people in the arm, if you keep doing that, if you've done that, you've done something that you need to go and repent of. The Lord will forgive you, but we've got to wake up now. Our society, all of these people, just about every job you could have, policemen harassing your brothers and sisters, judges throwing people into prison, lawyers, evil, wicked, terrible people, as the days of Sodom and Gomorrah are ye. But the good news is you can repent. Yes, we were all lured in by the devil's wicked sneer and his offer of all the pleasure and evil and power we wanted. But it's time that we wake up, friends. Because once you make the agreement, you have to understand, many of these individuals have made an agreement and they can't back out of it or they lose their life. And there's some of them that are willing to lose their life. They wake up and then you see they come up missing. But many of them aren't just disappeared. Some of them are tortured. They have to make an example of certain people. So if you don't want to be tortured or humiliated or exposed, you have to keep doing what you're doing. That's really what selling your soul is. It's blackmail. Because you really can't sell your soul. I want to tell you that. No matter what you've ever said or done, it doesn't matter. You're a child of the Lord. And not only that, don't worry about them exposing you. Because what you should do is go out there and expose them and yourself and let the world know that we're all in this boat. We've all been abused. We've all been exposed. We've all been humiliated. And like the Apostle Paul, who said, look, I'm a murderer. I tried to kill the Christians. I was in darkness, and now I found the light, and I'm going to tell everybody. And that's what you guys need to do. I have an answer for you today as to how we can solve this, but there's only one way out of this, friends. We've got 2 months and some odd days to go before the Great Tribulation gets here. Now, it could be some other time, but I think that's about the time that this thing's going to start, the Great Tribulation. So that isn't very much time. But what they're doing is they're controlling our minds. They're not going to kill us themselves. They're not going to murder us themselves. They are not allowed to do that. What they're doing is they're luring us into different camps. And on your phone, you get a feed. And if you're a liberal or a conservative or an anarchist or a Satanist or whatever it is that you like, and they determine that with algorithms, with all kinds of things, and they've got a file on you, and they know who you are and what you've done, everything you're doing. And they've made you believe in who you are, that it's the only way. And they're using you to be a spokesman for your team. And they've made these separations so ridiculous and at odds with each other that they're going to clash. Now they're orchestrating the clash. They're announcing that stupid Biden, this senile old man, just let in all these crazy people, and now it's going to happen, and we better do something, but they don't tell you what to do. There is nothing you can do if you don't wake up. And not only must you wake up, but you have to understand that everybody's going to have to wake up. There's nothing they can do to us. The world will not come to an end. We'll all be saved if we can wake up and see that inner Christ within and understand the principle of love and stop hating one another and start realizing who put the division in between us. They used to do this with religion. They kept the masses down by telling them they're guilty. They never told them the truth. They told them that deity was a bearded man floating around in yonder heaven. We're going to go burning in hell, and that we had to do what we were told. They instilled this in us through mass hypnosis. Now they are trying to create chaos and absolute anarchy. And when that happens, when they think that the world is, because this phone just come out, right? The latest versions of the phone, they had to have them in place so they can have the digital money. And in other words, there is no other system available. I want to tell you that one of the biggest lies, they're not sending up rockets. They don't have that technology. They don't know what the stars are. They do have some information. They could build rockets. A lot of stuff that we see it looks so fantastic and they seem so amazing. A lot of it is really an optical illusion. The phone itself looks like some amazing technology. Well, remember back with Nazi Germany, IBM was creating a computer. And what was they creating that computer for? It was a very primitive computer. But they were using it to catalog all of the dissenters and those that were on their side, the soldiers, and knowing who everybody is, their race, their ethnicity, their beliefs. They were trying to do the best they could to get everybody in the computer. And then they would literally exterminate individuals that were, it's called eugenics, and it's still going on as much as they can do it up until the point when it goes fully into effect. I mean, all these Bavarian Illuminati individuals that come over from Bavaria in Project Paperclip, if you look at what they were trying to do, all of them were involved in some part of the game, whether it was movie industry to try and give you propaganda, whether it was Satanism and music with the lyrics in the background, Pink Floyd and weird people on stage with fish mouths slamming their guitars on the podium, screaming at the top of their lung, and Think about this, guys. You know, this whole transgender thing. You think it just came up out of nowhere here recently? Think about, when was Elvis famous? In the 60s? Late 50s, 60s? I think. Elvis was a man, right? I don't think he ever showed any tendencies, right? But remember how by the time he died, I mean, it was in the late 70s and 80s, he was wearing these white suits with glitter and real tight pants and doing the wiggle wiggle. Okay, very similar to what they had Michael do, but a little different. Ooh, ooh, grabbing the crotch. Well, now think about Liberace and Roy Orbison, or I can't think of them all. But, well, remember Rod Stewart. I remember when I was a young person thinking that he was gay. He had a pink shirt. He always wore a pink shirt. And there were a lot of lyrics in some of his songs that seemed weird. I didn't even know what he was saying. I never even listened to Pink Floyd and people like that. Now, I recently heard a Pink Floyd song, and it was a beautiful song. And I was like, wow, I like that song. What is that song? And then I found out at the end of the song it was Pink Floyd. So I understand why people liked these bands. They were actually trained to do what they were doing. They looked like crazy, rebellious kids, but many of them were old men. And they were these barbarians. That was their job. Satanists, atheists, whatever they could do to lure the children into some crazy idea. But I remember hearing Rod Stewart in an interview. They asked him if he was gay or how long he'd been gay, and he said he wasn't gay, and he said he never was gay, but they told him to wear that feminine outfit and sing those songs. They orchestrated the whole thing. It was just a show. So why didn't they just tell Elvis to be gay and go on stage naked? Because the world wouldn't accept it. They had to gradually go from Elvis to Michael Jackson to Boy George or whatever. Why were they steering the children in that direction? Well, at the same time, they got the country station, and instead of going into that sin, they were encouraging them to, well, with songs like, I don't care if it's right or wrong, you know. If this is right, I don't want to be wrong, you know. I want to go have an affair. I want to commit adultery. They talk about very bad things. But there are a lot of country music that's very good, right? You think, as a Christian, that, well, they're talking about Jesus. Some of it, Jesus Take the Wheel, right? They're good songs. But you see, that's one category. The hard-nosed Christian, anti-abortionist, the conservative. And they want people like that. And you believe in that. And your view is that we should now go in and monitor people's bedrooms and make sure they're not doing the nasty. Well, that's as bad as Catholic Church. Why do we care? Or why do we think that we're the judge? As Christians, we think, well, yeah, we would like a country where this was outlawed. You see, we know that this stuff is wrong, but did you know that a lot of Muslims believe that too? They know that a lot of this Western American liberalism is wrong, and they're angry, and they've been torturing them. They went down there and destroyed Venezuela. Why do you think that the Republican conservative states, the people that seem to have some common sense, are Texas and Florida, Louisiana and Alabama, Georgia or something? They want everybody to go down there into the South that's of this particular conservative type, who believes in Jesus. And then they're going to destroy the entire area. They'll probably nuke it, or a big tidal wave will come and just destroy it. They're getting everybody out of California. Not Southern California. I think that they've been luring a lot of the Mexicans and the people coming over the border and aliens, and foreigners, and homeless people are all over dying, and people on drugs, and they're funneling drugs in there. They want that. So Southern California is gone. Phoenix, gone. It's going to fall, and all those people are not going to have any food once the grid goes down. Now, they could get in their car with their last dime and get some gas and go to the mountains and live in the mountains, but most of them cannot do it. But you do not understand that if you do not let go of this world, and all this time we've been thinking, oh, that just means don't be worldly. Well, that just means don't listen to rock and roll, right? But we can still keep our dossier job and murder people with medications, right? We can go to war and murder people over there because they're a bunch of gooks, right? And chinks. They're terrorists. Well, we've been creating a lot of people who hate us. So they're taking all those people from Guatemala and Venezuela, and they're angry, and they don't know anything about freedom or Christ or anything. I don't know, maybe they believe in, some of them are Catholic, but they don't really go to church, don't know much about Christianity or anything. They don't really read their Bibles. They don't encourage that. A lot of those people from Mexico, there are a lot of materialists. Look, I love all races of people. You guys know that. But I'm telling you that in these communist socialist countries, they've created a lot of materialists who care nothing about anything other than making a good living, having money. They like the world as it is. They want to make it great again. And most of the people in America are that way. So while we're busy hating the rest of the world because thinking they're the ones who destroyed it all. And remember, in their countries, they believe we're the ones who destroyed it all. They're worshiping the moral Allah, who doesn't put up with all this transgender and evil and rock and roll and Sodom and Gomorrah. So they hate us, not knowing that it had nothing to do with us as a group, as a people. We never wanted any of this. We were taught from the time we were born to go buy a book and to believe in that book. They were taught to go buy a book and to believe in that book. This same story has been given to every nation on the face of the earth from time began. It is the outward, literal story. And we're bickering over a story, when within the book, it tells us the answers. We have to love one another. We have to give freely, to care for one another. And yet, in our society, in a Christian society, most Christians believe in prisons and judgment and the law, the rule of law, soldiers and armies and patriotism and killing people and hating people. If you go to the Middle East, they probably believe that they're moral because they're not the ones doing all this raping and pillaging, and they're not even moral. Their women have veils, right? But yet they're abusing. They have this very hard morality. They have harems. They're told that if they kill the heathen and free the world of the infidel for Allah, that they'll go to paradise even if they die in battle and they get 72 virgins. Well, where do they get 72? Well, it's based on this esoteric information that we talk about. But in the literal sense, it makes them murderers and idolaters and fornicators. And yes, we're using that word properly because that means a slave owner. women they use for sex, not because they love them. They don't get married because they love the woman. They have a harem so they can have a big family, get wealth, and have a lot of control and power over the manor. Now, that was in the Bible too. But Christianity is what, most of the world isn't Judaism anymore. Even though they've turned Christianity basically into a little baby Judaism, where we've gone back to this evil vengeance deity and justice and the law and punishment in prisons. But we have the illusion over here, our billion Christians. We talk about, but Christians just turn the other cheek. But that's not what Christianity is. Our government is pillaging and raping and killing them. And so, in their religion, it says in their book that you should be just like it says in our book. But it's more of a Judaistic type religion. Of course, they've made a lot of modern religions a lot more like that here in America. But they've divided America into groups who believe in the law and those who don't believe in any law, or those that are so liberal they want to run around naked in the street and have orgies. And even in the Middle East now, there are a lot of secular people that don't believe in the Quran. If you look at Saudi Arabia, they're planning on making Riyadh, I think it's Riyadh or right there somewhere, it's going to be the entertainment capital. It's going to be Las Vegas on steroids. Remember, that's what we call Sin City. Oh yeah, they're going to have a big sinful city right there in the middle of the world in Saudi Arabia. And you're going to have boxing matches. They're taking over the boxing industry. They're going to have contests. They're going to have gambling like Las Vegas. Sex and women and all of this. They're setting up the world as they always have, in its structure, to deteriorate the mind and to lure the children in. They get them on drugs. The drug cartel is run by the CIA, and the CIA is run by this family. The family is from Bavaria. And the reason they're bringing all these people from the Middle East up into Europe, some of them here, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, the reason why Al Chapo and the drug cartel have completely taken over Mexico is because they're taking these children. As we read in Exodus chapter 13, Yahweh delivered his people at the very same time that he destroyed Egypt and took their firstborn. He took their firstborn because he doesn't want them to have an inheritance. This whole thing is a war that who gets to rule, who gets to take over the earth. And Yahweh has told his little group of people that if they will participate in destroying all the world, that they're going to sit on thrones and rule. But Yahweh has demanded, remember, the Bible says that the Judeans in Jesus' day worshiped Molech in Acts chapter 7. And that the tent of Yahweh was the tent of Molech. And that golden calf that they made when they threw it in the fire was Molech. And that Judaism today is not the worship of the Lord, but the worship of Molech. So, they need a great reset. They want to take over the world. It usually happens at the end of days. I heard a story the other day on the internet. It was a lady that told this story. Said she used to go to this college or this school. And there was this classroom where this guy that taught the class was very nice, very calm and good person and helpful, very loving. It was a great teacher. One day they all came to class and he had the desks all arranged in a circle. And in the middle of the circle was a table. And on the table was a fish in a bowl of water. They all filed in and sat down and looked at each other and around in a circle, wondering what's about to happen. And unlike all the other days when this very good-natured teacher would come out and say hello and good morning and all that stuff, he had this very strange look on his face, and he stood in the middle of the class and he said, "Now, this is going to be your final test. If you pass this test, you'll go on. If you don't pass this test, you will fail. It's a rotten world out there. It's a dog-eat-dog world. And you've got to learn this." And he reaches in, plunges into this tank water bowl with his hand, and pulls out this fish and lays it on the table out of the water. And he's flipping around, gasping for air. And the teacher walks out of the classroom. And as he goes out, he says, "I don't want anybody to do anything or to move from their seats. I don't want you to say a word. I don't want you to do anything. Don't move. Anybody who moves out of their seat will get a failing grade." So he leaves the room, and all these students are sitting there looking at each other with their mouths open, going, "What are we doing?" And the fish is just flopping around, starting to flop a little less. And everybody knew the fish was about to die. But nobody would get up and put the fish back in the bowl to save that fish's life, because this was their grade, and they were going to need a good grade, of course, to get a good job in this world, and they weren't going to sacrifice their lives and their grade for this fish. Finally, I guess one of the kids in class jumped up and grabbed the fish and put it back in the bowl, and sat down and says, "I don't care what grade I get. This is stupid. I ain't doing this." As soon as she did that, the teacher comes back in. He says, "What have you guys become? What are you? You're willing to do anything to get a passing grade, to get along, to make money?" That's the world's become. They know this is a test to see what you'll do. And unless we wake up and realize that it's not about making money or getting ahead or hating the other group because they're evil, when it's some higher government above us that is leading us and luring us all into these beliefs. None of our beliefs are from ourselves. We didn't make any of this up. Our Bible has 66 books because it's not complete. They took out all the books that would help you understand the esoteric meaning. Within the parable is the truth. But out of fear and wanting to be like everybody else, and because we're all cowards, we don't stand up. We don't love our brother. No matter what country we live in, America, Mexico, we can see that Mexico is being run by a drug cartel. But what we can't see is it's run by us. Our government is running it. And who's running our government? Satan. Some of us even know that. But we don't have the courage to say no. I would rather live in the woods by myself eating nuts and berries like Grizzly Adams than I would live in this world and be compromised by the evil therein. But you know, that's a gift. Sometimes we get a good deal. I was thrown out. My persecution, my suffering saved my life. The only way we can succeed in this world is to give up the world. Whoever will lose his soul will gain it, Jesus said. It's right there in your scriptures, but if the masses of people around you don't encourage you to see that, you will not see it. But you'll be encouraged to believe in the Old Testament deity of vengeance. And because everyone else is doing it, you'll do it. Now, there's always two extremes, like in the Middle East or probably China. They had some very harsh laws. Chop your head off if you stole something, or your hand or something. But because that was bad, and nobody liked all the persecution and the hate, they created people who hated good. Because they thought if that's what good is, they hated it. And they began and they publicly went after atheism or Satanism on purpose. But you Satanists are more fooled than the Christians. Because you may have seen the hypocrisy in Christianity, but you weren't smart enough to understand it wasn't Jesus that was the hypocrite. It was the cowards like you who gave up on love because you were angry, because you got bitter, you got stumbled. You know, the Apostle Paul says we shouldn't stumble people. If somebody says, hey, you shouldn't eat that meat, and he says, I wouldn't eat meat because I don't want to stumble them. In other words, not for my conscience, but for them. That's how we should be. We should love our neighbor. Go talk to him about it. Try to make a reconciliation. Once you explain to your neighbor why you're doing certain things, and you show interest in their feelings, then we can all get along. But instead, they've divided the world in all these camps. They're doing it on purpose. And now they're ramping it up with these phones. And these phones are with algorithms and some crazy satanic plot. They are specifically tailoring your deprogramming, or actually it's programming is what it is. They're deprogramming you from thinking normal thoughts, and they're trying to program you to think crazy thoughts. You do that with pain and suffering. You torture people and you get them to do what you want. You mesmerize them, or you do something. And this is what's happening. But this phone was designed. We built the very tool that we're using now that is tearing our families and our lives and our nations apart. This phone, I'm getting only information that I think they're trying to exploit some of the things that I believe already and lure me into a certain camp. But some of us can't be lured. Some of us have woken and we see what they're doing. If we can get everybody to wake up and love everybody, I mean, if Americans and Christians could love the Middle Eastern Muslims and the Buddhists and the atheists, not because they're atheists. I don't agree with atheism. But I also don't believe in a bearded anthropomorphic being hovering in yonder heavens. It's a matter of semantics. I just saw an interview with this black guy. They keep showing me this black guy in my feed, and he's always saying he doesn't believe in racism, and he, you know, he has black people on his show, and he's like, why are you believing in racism? And why are you? And they're like, I don't believe. What are you talking about? They're the racists. I'm the victim here. And he's like, really? Why are you playing the victim? Anyway, I was like, where did this from? He's like complete opposites. And I think he's doing a lot to awaken people. You might think, oh, this is the great disclosure, the great awakening. There really isn't any racism. Well, yes, there is. There is division. There is racism. But it isn't because white people hate black people or black people hate white people. It's because they're creating a division between us. No matter how they can, they will do it. And so If you look in the world right now, you'll see a lot of information coming out about how wicked and nasty, unloving, and hateful and abominable the government we have in place is over us. And we say, yes, finally the truth. They're telling the truth that Biden is a evil, wicked crook. And his son's a drug addict and a pedophile and a crook. And they're all pedophiles and crooks. Yay, they're telling the truth now. They're coming right out and saying, look, this whole thing was a plot, this SHOT. And now we're all going to die. Well, we're going to do something about that. Well, sorry, you already took it. They didn't tell you while it was going on, but after it was all done, now they're like, oh yeah, it was a big hoax. Now I'm allowed to say that on TV. So what was the point? Are they going to enlighten us now? Was this just a big game? Now we're all going to wake up? No, because just as there is all this information going out saying, hey, it was all a big HOAX, there's another side. There's another channel you can go to. Flip your channel. Click, click, click. And over here, they're still saying, oh, look at these Christians are about to come and take your freedom to have sex. Or they're going to say that you can't have freedom of religion and be a atheist or a witch. And they're going to have Nuremberg trials. And they're going to start putting you in jail. And they're going to start killing you. And you better fight them tooth and nail. They're going to take away your right to kill your baby. And they're going to kill. And these guys are, yay, we're going to dress up in black. And we're going to have a Baphomet on the corner. And we're going to sacrifice to the devil and give them our baby. That's a hoax. That's not the real Satanism. The real Satanism is the people who rule this world. It's Satan himself that's laughing all the way. Because he's got you to believe they're the bad guy. Because they don't believe in your religion. I mean, you could just see they're dressing in black. They're talking about vampirism. They're all pedophiles. So obviously they're the bad guys. Well, yes, there is a group of individuals that have sinned and they've gone in that direction. And they feel like anarchy is the right way. And they're wrong. And they will pay a great price for this delusion that they've allowed themselves to be deceived by. But on the other side, you've got to have two sides to fight. You've got all these hypocrites, all these Christians that say that, well, we've got to be righteous and we're the only righteous ones, so let's kill all them and we'll be the saviors and we'll have law and order. So Trump's leading that pack. We're going to make America great again. The problem is that we're just secularists. We're basically atheists who are lying to ourselves saying that we're not. Trump's talking about God, but I don't think he really believes in God. I think he's one of the actors. And his job is to pretend to be a Christian and to lure us into this rage. And we're going to take our country back again and blah, 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 blah. Meantime, they're bringing Biden, the bumbling old fool, is bringing all these terrorists into the country. And there's going to be a civil war. Because it isn't just the atheists against the Christians. It's going to be atheists and Christians against Muslims and whatever other kind of group there might be. Somebody was saying, oh yeah, there's all kinds of Satanists. There's secular Satanists. There's deist Satanists. They actually believe that there are deities, like real deities, that Satan is one of them and they worship him. And then there's those that just believe in nothing. They're atheists and it's just a big game for them. They think it's funny. They can do anything they want. Do what thou wilt. Why do you think Aleister Crowley wanted to be the Beast? And Jack Parsons trying to fulfill the role of Antichrist? Because they were lured into a belief that there's going to be a final judgment. And we're all going to have to be deceived to see who can come off victorious from this deception and not be deceived. They were taught some fantastic belief, some in-depth, complicated theory that life is really about dualism and we have to suffer in order to achieve. This is partly true, but it's been perverted, just as everything. Like, sex is good. The Lord made sex, but gluttony is not good. Perversion is not good. Disease is not good. A lack of control, rape is not good. Where do you draw the line? Food is wonderful, but poison in your system is not good. Gluttony and drunkenness is not good. Should we be under a law that everybody has to take a bath every day because of hygiene concerns? Well, isn't cleanliness next to godliness? But is it a law? And should we make a law? Well, Dave, there's all these people doing wrongs. We've got to guide them and make laws and certain standards. Well, you see, we did live in this country under certain standards for a long time, but they weren't enforced. And that would have worked, but then they purposefully brought in a group to challenge our beliefs. And when they said, hey, you should kill your babies or mutilate your children, we didn't protest. We didn't say, hey, I'm not sending my kid to school when they're being taught that stuff. I'm not going to support a government that says that they need all your tax dollars, but we have no accountability as to where any of this money is going. And we know it's going overseas and to pedophiles and to corrupt governments and to the destruction of our very lives. But the law says you've got to pay your taxes, so you better do it. Well, now if you don't pay your taxes, they'll put you in prison. But back when it was just, one of those things like back at the Boston Tea Party, we should have stood our ground and said no. But what they did was they lured us in by giving us land and a donkey and 60 acres and making cars and luxurious homes and candy and sex and having the television and the propaganda and luring us all little by little into this other way of life. And they did that all on purpose, and now they're doing it still on purpose with this phone. Here's the key. They're going to win because all of us are fighting each other. They're not fighting us. They're not going to be in the streets with guns. They're not going to take the military and turn it on us. They've created terrorists to turn on us. They're going to collapse the bank imminently. It's going to happen. There won't be any food. We'll be fighting one another when there's no food and we're angry and people are coming into our homes trying to steal our food, and we'll be shooting them. They'll be shooting us. It'll be mother against father and father against son. Why? Because of all these different religions. Some are liberals and the parents are going to be fighting the kids because how dare you be a homosexual? You evil child. We've got to kill you now. When it was the parents' fault because the parent didn't even teach them about the divine love. You allowed your children to get sucked into this satanic world because you didn't have any integrity. You went out yourself and got on drugs. You didn't warn your children about plastic knees, surgeries, and radiation therapies that were murdering. Nobody noticed any of this. We didn't say, oh, well, at least they're not aborting my baby, so I'm going to go ahead and support these churches that don't do anything to stand up for the truth, who don't preach righteousness. They don't teach loving one another and living a life by example. At this point, because of our beliefs, because of what we have been lured into, We've all been separated into these little camps. And the war's about to begin. And there's only going to be one way out of this. Two ways. One, the Bible tells you this. Get out of the world. Be no part of her, or you will share with her in her sins. Because her sins have massed clear up into heaven. It won't be good enough that you say, oh, I don't agree with the world, but you still live in the world. Oh, I don't agree with these poison outfits where they're serving poison at the local restaurants, but you still go to the restaurants and eat the poison and let your children eat them. And you say, well, a little piece is okay. Got to have a little bit of lies. You can't always speak the truth. We got to hate some people, especially when it is defending our family and our food. Like somebody's trying to take our money. Like, I'll even vote for a Satanist, they say. As long as, we don't care. He's not our priest. He's just running a country. If this Satanist can become president and make America great again. I mean, Donald Trump is a Kabbalist. And Kabbalism is Satanism, friends, if you study it. And no, you wouldn't know that they're a Satanist because they don't run around. Some of them don't talk about Satan that way. Some of them call him Yahweh. They don't say Molech because, they don't even know it themselves. They're deceived. But our Bible tells you this, that it's the worship of Molech. Baal worship. It's, as I said, Exodus 13. The mark of the beast is to join with them in murdering all the children. And if you will go along with the plagues coming upon the world and put the plagues on the world with Yahweh and be obedient and submissive and take a jawbone of an ass and wipe out your fellow brethren because they're not bowing to this devil and hating and, throwing the first stone at their mother because she didn't want to be a slave, but she ran away. And now the elders are going to find her, chase her down, and murder her because she wouldn't abide by this law of slavery. And you're going to not use your mind, your natural ability to think and say that's wrong. But you're going to get lured into a religion. Why? Because this book says that you ought to be in a religion. Well, none of the holy books say that. They picked through the holy scriptures and they've given us one book now called the Bible. And they put 66 books in there to tell you that it's not the real Bible. This is a dual book. It's got the Old and the New Testament. And if you don't know how to use that book and you don't understand that the Old Testament is telling you what this evil deity of vengeance is doing and how he's trying to murder the entire world and kill their babies. And you're like, well, hey, he's God. He can do what he wants. We're going to worship him or else he's going to kill us all. Well, I would rather die than pick up a stone and kill my mama. In fact, I will not worship any deity who demands that I judge other people. Not because I don't think things are wrong and they're doing things wrong, but because I don't believe that people are bad. People are believing what they believe because of the propaganda in the world. So it's this game that they're playing where these elite are stirring up dissension, sedition. Yeah, that's what the Black Pope did before he became the Pope with the white robe. Francis, down there in Argentina, where the Bavarians went after World War II. He was one of the chief individuals chosen by the Council of Nine and by the Black Pope. And what Francis did for years before he became Pope was create, like the CIA, create little groups of sedition in towns and riots and upheaval. And through that upheaval and rioting and confusion and propaganda, they had the entire South American continent in poverty, anarchy, confusion, depression, getting them ready and prepared for the day of reckoning, when we would all begin to fight one another. So what we're going to have to do is wake up and realize that this isn't a fight against each other. We've got to lay down our weapons now and turn the other cheek and love one another and forgive one another and say no more. I'm telling you, if you don't get out of the world, and I mean stop going to the store, stop going to the movies, stop watching the propaganda, come into the real world, which is the actual earth, go into the forest or the meadow or the country, build a small, modest home with your 2 hands, build a garden, raise your children in righteousness, and encourage your brothers to do the same. You can come out here, and within a few months, there's nobody out here. Whoever owns this land out here, they're not here. And when the tribulation comes, they're all going to perish. 1/3 of the earth is going to die like that within a few months. And then later on, there's going to be a bunch more until it's in ruins. And the cities are falling around you. 1,000 at your left hand and 10,000 at your right. But it will not come nigh unto thee. Why? Because you're going to be the church in the wilderness. And the Lord's going to protect you and keep you from the 10 days of trial. We're not appointed unto the wrath. Why? Because we've gotten out of the world. We're no part of the world. And we're standing on Mount Zion playing our 10-string harp. And the white robes were given to us by grace. We don't judge one another. We simply give thanks that the Lord has given us His Spirit. For it's in us. Love. We must find it. And we must do it now, or we are all to perish. Friends, we have a very, very short time. You've got to get out of the world now. I'm telling you, you got just about enough time to pack up, look at your finances, put everything you've got into a piece of land. Because if you don't have somewhere to go by the time it happens, then all that's going to be left is for you to come out here with the shirt on your back. But at least if you come out then, we'll have food for you waiting. And we're not going to hold it against you because we're going to love each other. We understand. Just please get out here one way or the other. I'm David Vose. I'm going to go ahead and go. May the Lord bless you guys. See you tomorrow.